quit filling your time queen, because when I did quit filling my time, I can hand on my heart tell you that my life changed dramatically for the better. I used to hold a master's degree in filling my time, and I know what it's like to constantly be busy, to feel overwhelmed, stressed out, and worried how to fit it all in. So you might wonder right now, what are some key indicators that might be telling you that it's time to quit filling your time? So one of the key indicators is that you generally have the feeling that there's just not enough time to fit things in. You constantly feel like you're struggling to fit in things that are really important, like your exercise, your daily activity, even things like shopping. Everything is just a struggle to fit in. And you just have a general sense that you're always busy. Now, if I had a magic wand and I was to be able to give you an extra 24 hours every single week, you might be feeling super excited, but at the same time, I can assure you that if you're right now feeling like you're constantly busy and you're overwhelmed and you're stressing how to fit your life into your week, you would manage to fill those extra 24 hours. So it's not really about having extra time, it's more how you fill your time. And it comes down to a habit that we have of being able and following through on filling our time constantly. Now, there's actually a reason why you're constantly filling your time. And in a moment, you might be realizing that it doesn't come down to you actually being all that busy constantly. So let's make a few examples. Example number one, if I was to tell you to take an hour during the day to get out of work and do something for yourself, you'd kind of really feel uncomfortable with that. And say if you actually went out and took that hour, you would have that constant sense of urgency to get back to work because you needed to get all this stuff done. Example number two, if you were to stop spending the extra time, the extra hours, your lunch break to do extra work on top of what is required from you, if you were to stop doing that, you would also feel really uncomfortable because you'd have this sense of it not being good enough. The sense of it could be more perfect than it is at the moment. And then example number three, if someone asks something of you, you really struggle to say no. So I have another work example. If you're at work and you have a commitment, say a date night in the evening, and your boss was to ask something of you that required you to stay an extra 2 hours, it would be really hard for you to say no. Or if a friend was to ask you for a favor, but really you wouldn't want to do whatever you were asked to do, you also couldn't say no. Now, these are just a few examples, and these are all signs that your constant work or your constant busyness are tied in with your self-worth. So the thought right now of being less busy or doing less work or being able to do things less perfect are kind of turning your stomach upside down. And all that means is that at some point in your life, you learned and inherited that unless you do all these things, unless you do things perfectly, you don't get to feel good about yourself. Now, I also understand that if right now I tell you that you can be less busy and do things less perfect, but still get to feel good about yourself, you probably don't believe me. But it is possible. You just have to do the work, because your subconscious beliefs are driving what you identify with your self-worth. The habits that are so embedded in your internal blueprint and that you might not be aware of make it feel like it's impossible to make changes. Right now, you might feel like that you just don't have the personal and professional boundaries to be able to say no when needed. Or you might feel like that you just don't have the tools to start quit filling your time. You probably just realize that actually the reason you never have time and constantly feeling busy is just because it's the only way for you to feel good about yourself. You learned at some point that unless you're doing all this work, unless you're doing things perfectly, you don't get to feel good about yourself. So I have a few questions for you today that help you gain some self-awareness around just a place to start and how to move forward and learning how to feel good about yourself without having your self-worth tied into certain actions, rewards, or being perfect. So question number one, if you were able to stop doing things perfectly and being busy all the time, what would you believe about yourself? So that's question number one. You can write these down and think about them later if you need to. Question number two, if you allowed yourself to believe something different about yourself, what would it be? And then the final question I have for you today is, if you had the ability to say no, and if you were able to feel good about yourself, whether you're performing at work or not, what would you believe about yourself? So these are just a few questions to get started, and I hope you get to stop filling your time with things that you don't need in your life.